Welcome to Mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor. आप सबनों प्यार भरी सत श्री अकाल, नमस्कार, आदाब and shalom. Well, today actually I'm starting the show with a very sad news, but just want to mention that make sure that you stay in touch. Send me an email, hstoor@gmail.com. It is hstoor@gmail.com for any thing which you would like me to discuss and cover. I'm talking about, you can see Ruschell Boone. I don't know how many among you know about her, but she was one of the best anchor on New York 1 and New York City. And those people who live in New York and who have been watching New York 1, they knew her, and last year only she won an Emmy for her coverage. She passed away earlier today. She actually was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer last year, and the prayers were said at the Gurdwara, and she was constantly in touch with me. And when it happened again, I gave her a call about, I would say, less than 3 weeks ago. I wanted to go and visit her, but because I was sick, I got flu, cold and bad throat, and I didn't want to pass it on because I knew that she is sick again. She got broke the bad news about the cancer getting metastasized. And those people who do not understand what metastasized is basically, in layman's term, they say it when the cancer reaches to your bones, which means it is spread so much that there is nothing you can do, even though cancer itself sort of like it's a death sentence in itself. But it doesn't mean that the person has to die from it, depending on what kind of cancer you have, what type, when it was diagnosed. Even though she got diagnosed in early stages, she went through the chemos and everything, she came out fine, except of course, you lose weight and you lose your hairs and everything. And I have seen this thing happening actually literally when my wife, when she went through it. It's not easy, and I told her that when I spoke to her that I'm going to come and visit you, and she was like, Harpreet, you can come anytime. And earlier today I got a call from the studio. A mutual friend of ours broke the news to me. She was the person who actually started putting the minorities in general and Sikhs and Punjabi community in particular in the main media, because she started working with the New York 1, and apparently, soon as she started working with the New York 1, I don't know, I actually never asked her how she found me. But yes, she did find me, and we had a conversation, we met, and after that she covered so much about everything, about the community, the Sikh community in particular. And whenever there was a crisis, she was always there to talk about it, give the proper perspective about the community. And at one point I even was able to, thanks to the Sikh Culture Society Gurdwara's management and the other Gurdwaras who get involved in organizing the annual Sikh Day Parade, I was able to get her honored at that point. In Manhattan also. It didn't come to me as a surprise, but definitely it came as a shock, because I was expecting that she will fight it out, but this is something which is apparently she couldn't, or she was already enough weak from the medications and everything that the disease itself, the cancer itself, did not give her enough time. And she has young kids. I met her husband, her kids, great family, great kids. But I don't know. I don't know. This is something. I definitely can associate myself. When somebody passes away, you go to the funeral, you go through all this, knowing that okay, the person is gone and he or she has passed away. But what happens to the family after the person is gone? Yeah, you already have lost something which is really very precious within the family, and she was actually part of the larger family, not just her own family. She was part of the bigger family of New York City. I still remember, there was a trend in Richmond Hill, young kids going around with the radios on the bicycle with the, the speakers on the sides, going around on Liberty Avenue, 101 Avenue, 103rd Avenue, Rockaway Boulevard, that part of Richmond Hill, Jamaica Avenue, playing the songs, going around. And she actually found out about that. She literally did a story on that also. So the reason I'm mentioning is that she had eyes and ears to the ground, to the community which she was part of. And that is what made her a part of the bigger New York City community. And that bigger community is definitely going to miss her. Yes, we are going to miss her also. But she also will be missed by a lot of those people. And she also set up like a role model to the others by becoming what she was, what she became. She was an immigrant who came at the age of 11, and after that, went to school here, graduated, and then started working. And I think around 2000, 2001, she started working with New York One, something like that. And since then, she was a fixture on New York. First, it was as doing the segments on the streets, and then doing actually from the studio. And I'm really sorry that this is something which I'm sharing, because to me it was a personal loss. For those people who actually are listening or watching this program, I would like them to, at least whenever they go to pray, say a prayer for her soul and also for the family which she left behind. The two young kids and her husband, they are great people. Like she was great, the family itself was great. And she left a very positive remarks, a very positive mark on the community and on the family and the larger family of New York One and New York City. Once again, I'm going to miss her as much as the other people. Maybe I will miss her more because we were constantly in touch off and on. And she will always tell me, Harpreet, if there is anything, let me know. And before, I take the break, there is something which I want to share, which I promised her that I will not share while she is still alive, but now she is gone. She told me once I was in Manhattan and we came across, and I was at City Hall. She was coming out, I was walking in for something. And she pulled me to the side and she said, Harpreet, I will tell you something. I said, what? She said, I just walked out from the newsroom of the mayor's office. And she said, the people over there, they talk about you, that means about me, Harpreet, in very respectful, very honored way, and they love you and they trust you. And I cannot, and I will not tell them that we are friends, because if I do that, then they will not tell me if you did something or they saw something which you did and you did not, unknowingly you did, and they may want to talk about it. so that I can correct you if you made a mistake. So I'm not going to break that news to them that we are friends, but to you I'm letting you know that those people in the press room at the mayor's office, they admire you. And I definitely cherish those comments. I will cherish our friendship and our understanding about the communities and the needs of the communities till I'm alive. And like she was doing, I will try to do whatever I can while I'm still around, or my memory gives me the strength and energy to do it. So at this point, I think I would rather take a break before I go to the regular show, because I just have to collect myself also a little bit. So please say prayer for her family, and if you have any questions, please send an email at justoor@gmail.com. So a lot of things are going on, as we know that India is getting ready for G20 meet, because being the president of G20 group for the year, everything is being done to polish the image of India, even at the cost of demolishing some of the people who were living in certain chugis for years, and some of them, they were living there for close to like 35 years, and all of a sudden, those temporary houses, they were gone. I'm not questioning who owned the land, but the question is, before the world leaders, including the US President Joe Biden, lands and travels to wherever they are going to stay, that whole makeup, that reminds me, when our current Prime Minister Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister, Chinese Premier Xi Jinping was invited, and he especially was taken to Ahmedabad, and overnight the walls were constructed to hide the poor neighborhoods, because the motorcade was going to pass from there, so that he cannot, or his staff who is going to travel with him, they cannot see those poor of India. Yes, it is something we need to learn and live with it. Just washing away the dirt does not take care of the dirt. Just ignoring those people who have been living there, and they were making their livings by doing whatever they were doing, and eliminating their livelihood all of a sudden, it does not help. There is a break within the community, when you talk about it, because there are people who have and there are people who don't. And that divide is actually getting bigger and bigger. Doesn't matter where we go, even right here in the United States where we are sitting, we have such a big divide that actually today they are talking about, within the United States now I'm talking about, before I talk about India, that President Joe Biden in his last infrastructure bill, he put up the money on the side to provide the internet to the people at the speed of the internet, which we have in the cities, to the people who actually don't live in the cities. And the scientists and the statisticians, for a better word, they are looking at statistically how much it will cost them per connection. The question is not about the connection taken to the house. The question is to have that high-speed fiber optic connection from wherever that connection is to the hub close to where they live, and from there providing them the connections. And they're talking about it's going to cost about $50,000 to $53,000 per house. and they are saying that money can be better, spent somewhere else. You know, now we can talk about in both the terms, U.S. as well as India. There is a transition of rural people to the cities. That's how the Chugis are developed. You go into New York City, there are neighborhoods where the new immigrants come in, and those immigrants, because they do not have the resources like the ones who came earlier, so because they do not have those resources, what happens is that they actually live in cramped houses and things like that. And those people who live in a better house setup, they even cannot fathom about that somebody can live like that. And actually, I was talking to somebody who was here on study visa, went back to India. And before he went, they were talking about, he happens to be from southeast of India. And he was talking about that, his family, his sister, his mother, they were actually living, they live in a small room, probably about 15 by 15. That's the room they share, where they cook and everything, and probably they are using some common place for shower and everything, and whenever the Mother Nature calls. So what I'm trying to say is, we should not feel ashamed of that, because we are moving. If we are really moving at the speed which is being shown to the world, that India will be a developed country, which I'm making a statement here right now, which you can note. Those people who are talking about that India will be a superpower, they can make a note of it, that India is a power, but India will never be a superpower. There are reasons for that. This is one of the biggest reasons. Unless we start giving proper respect to everybody and try to bring up everyone. You know, any building which is standing on the pillars, if every pillar is strong, the building will stay and it will be stable. But if there is just one pillar within the whole structure, sooner or later the building will start giving way, the other pillars will start giving way, and the building will crash. And that is something which we need to understand, we need to know. And that brings me to, to other thing about, there is a new hype as of yesterday. On the invitation from the president to these heads of the other governments, so instead of saying the President of India on the top, it says President of Bharat. Okay? We all know who come from India, that India is also known as Bharat, it is also known as Hindustan, it is also known as India. But the question is, next year is the election. That 2024 election is so important to win for the BJP, that they are using every kind of hype. And that is what it is. Bharat. Because if you remember, there was a whole new slogan, Har Ghar Pe Tiranga. The people who even did not have the money to have 3 meals in the house, they were actually forced to buy an Indian flag so that they can either hold it or hoist it in front of their chuggi or whatever they were living in. And if they were not doing it, the vigilantes went out and they did whatever they wanted to do, and the media, of course, did not really care about it. They do care about, okay, there is a new slogan. So same thing right here, there's a new slogan, it is going to be now Bharat, Bharat, our Bharat. But how would it make the underlying conditions? It doesn't. The question is to change those underlying conditions. And that's what is important. I was reading about, the Manipur Chief Minister, Biren Singh. He actually, started, he booked 3 members of the Editors Guild, including the president. Why? Because they talked about Manipur. When Manipur was burning, it is still burning. It's not that it is not burning anymore. It is still burning. There may be a temporary calm right now. Nobody talked about it till that video of that, those nude women being raped and killed became public 78 days after it happened. And still, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi did not give a statement on that. The only thing he said, by 2024, Manipur will be fine. Even though we still, the day he made that statement, we still had more than 4.5 months to go for 2023. So I don't know what they were trying to say, but definitely one thing I can see from here is I always talk about the freedom of speech and freedom of press. And this is how it can be suppressed. Now the question will be how much they will fight back at, or how much stamina they will have to fight it back. I think I did share that in 1976 when emergency was declared in India, I had a very close friend of mine, and he, along with 2 other people, they used to come out with a small Punjabi magazine. And all of a sudden, emergency was declared, and the instructions were, before a magazine is printed, the DC's office has to clear everything, what is being printed. And when he submitted his copy so that he can get it printed, the DC actually ordered to take out certain sections from the magazine. So he had no choice but to take it out. But he had another choice, which he did, and for which he definitely paid price. He wrote down right there, he left that space blank and wrote down, not printed because of the orders of the DC. And for that, he got arrested and he ended up behind the bars. He did spend some time behind the bars. So that is something which I'm talking about, that collectively, if India really wants to progress, we have to give the freedom of expression, freedom to dream, freedom to talk about it, freedom to criticize, freedom to accept the criticism. I was talking about the freedom of speech, to accept the criticism and the right to criticize. I was also reading about, there was a survey by Director of International Institute of Population Sciences. Since 1990, they have been doing the survey, and in India, it is conducted by National Family Health Surveys. That's what it is, and that is what it is titled. And its director, who actually broke the not that good news about the young kids who are born, who are coming to this world and they are not getting enough to eat because of malnutrition and stuff like that. So when he put out the statistics, he got the axe that he is, excuse me, I'm sorry for that, but I was trying to look at the paper. And, this is what I'm talking about. And that is something, which we need to understand, that any progress, even if you look at the families, within the families, the progress is made when the family members sit down and discuss the issues openly, and then based on that conversation, they come to some conclusion, and then they take the next step. So my humble request again is, I know it's not going to go anywhere, it is going to fall on the deaf ears, but still I'm going to still talk about it, that we need to accept the realities of emerging young populations, their expectations, and if we channelize their expectation the way it is done in China, then we will probably have a good economy, but we may not have the progress like it happens in the much advanced countries like in Europe and in America. Yes, there are also issues with the media here. Is the media totally neutral? No, it is not. But at the same time, within the media, they can say what they want to say, and they can talk what they want to talk. Even when President Trump was around, they made fun of him. He didn't like it, but they still did it. And now we have the current sitting president, Joe Biden. They made fun of him too. And a lot of people, they don't understand that he stutters, and that's why he speaks slow. And of course, with the progression of the age also, that makes the difference also. But when it comes down to working, he is still good. And that also brings me to Mitch McConnell's situation. He froze within last 4 weeks, I would say, twice while he was talking, which means he lost his chain of thought and he was looking blank. And today, actually, the physician at the Capitol Hill who ran the test and everything, he has cleared him from having any stroke or any other thing or any memory loss. And interestingly, both times after he froze, and within a few minutes, he was back interacting with the press and giving the, his spiel about the situation, whatever he wanted to talk about. Yes, it is scary, no doubt about it. We do have a population of those older politicians, but Trump is not young either. Those people who are die-hard supporters of Trump, they also need to look at his age. And, yes, I did talk about Nikki Haley last time, and I'm going to talk about her again today. Even though she is out there, she is saying the things in a way, it's a more diplomatic way of saying that honorable former president or future president Donald Trump, it is time for you to not to proceed with your re-election. But he's going to do it because within his mind, he has this concept of that if he wins, then he can pardon himself. That is within the U.S. Constitution, that a president can pardon anybody of any crime. So he's looking at that. But on the other side, Fannie Willis case in Georgia, in Atlanta, is something which even he cannot pardon himself. And the Georgia governor does not have that authority either. And within Georgia, there was a move to, impeach Fannie Willis or take away the case from her. And that did not go anywhere because within Republicans over there were not enough people to support it to begin with. And then they also needed some Democrats to be on board with them to proceed with that. So now that brings back us to what would happen in the future. The question is still being debated. There is another move going on using the Article 14 and subsection 3, that a person who tried to, take the power or revolted against the government should not be eligible to run for any elected office, and President Donald Trump is actually one of them. And one of the attorney who actually is also planning to run to be the President of the United States on Republican side, he has actually put up an application into the Supreme Court. And the hearing on that will be on October 6th, and decision probably is going to come out on October 9th, whether the Supreme Court will take up that case or not. And it will be interesting to watch. Why? Reasons. There are 6 Republican appointed justices on the Supreme Court, including the Chief Justice. 3 of them were appointed by the former President Donald Trump, thanks to Mitch McConnell, because he actually twisted the laws and rules and regulations of the Senate to first confirm one of the vacancy which arose when President Barack Obama was the president. That vacancy actually arose in February of 2016. And Mitch McConnell said, well, we are in the election year and we should not be putting up the justice during the election year. So he did not even bring up the person who was appointed to be the justice, even to have a meeting with him. He even did not have a meeting with him. And then we got President Trump, and during the President Trump, we got that vacancy filled, one more filled. And then Ruth Ginsburg Bader, RGB like they call her, she passed away, I think, around this time of the year, August. And Mitch McConnell was at that time still the majority leader in the Senate. February 2016 till 2017, nothing happened because of election years. But in 2020, when RGB passed away in August, Mitch McConnell made sure that Trump picks up the person to fill that vacancy before the end of the year. So right now we have 6 sitting justices who are nominated by the Republican president, and 3 of them by President Donald Trump. So how this case will be taken, what would happen, I don't know. But at the same time, there are justices appointed by the then President Donald Trump. When they heard the case about fraudulent election, fraudulent voters and everything, they actually voted against him. They gave the judgment against him. And before I take a break, I will tell you another thing. It was a Republican elected person in Nevada who actually is facing the music now because he voted twice, a Republican. And they are talking about cheating and votes being stolen. And I want to once again talk about, Ruschell Boone. It was really sad that she passed away. And definitely I will talk about it maybe a little bit more in the next show. And also the schools are opening tomorrow actually in New York City, and in different areas, different time. Probably some of them already are open. So be careful when you go out there, when you are driving, and be careful about that. And another thing which I would like to talk about today, which most of us are not even discussing anymore, and it is not even on our mind, the war between Ukraine and Russia. North Korean president right now is meeting President Putin in Russia, and they're talking about some trade of army release, like either bullets or shells, bomb shells, or whatever it is. And in return, I'm pretty sure that North Korea is going to look for transfer of some high-end technology from Russia, which Russia definitely has, no doubt about it. And that actually also add another factor which I should have actually discussed when I was talking about the G20 meeting in India. President Putin is not going to be in India because of the war going on, and Xi Jinping is also not coming to the Indian capital, New Delhi, for G20 meeting. And for Xi Jinping not coming has to do with the clashes going on between India and China on the border, and also the release of new map by Chinese media, where Arunachal Pradesh, which is part of India, China is claiming the whole of Arunachal Pradesh as its own territory. And and we just had a meeting of the BRICS meeting in South Africa, and in that meeting also there was some conversation between the Chinese premier and the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, but not much. And over there also from Russia, the President Putin did not go and attend that BRICS meeting. And there is a conversation going on expansion of that. So what would happen with this war which is going on right now in Ukraine? These small elements which are happening, the fear is that this war is going to expand actually. We got to look at few factors, and we have to have an honest assessment on it. Iran is helping Russia, China is helping Russia, India is helping Russia, North Korea is helping Russia, and they are all helping Russia in their own way. Okay? And then we have Belarus, which is totally in that pocket to help Russia. And Belarus is making some moves on the border with Poland. And if that something starts, then Poland gets into war with Belarus. Poland being part of NATO, NATO is committed to protect its member countries. That brings in NATO to the war with Belarus. Belarus has agreement with Russia. That brings Russia to support Belarus. And, it can really, literally, it can explode. Yes, NATO, Western countries, including United States and Canada, they are doing their best to provide the armament and money and every support, whichever they can, to Ukraine, but not directly getting involved in it, because they do not want, neither one of them, they want a third world war. But at the same time, everybody is looking for some kind of solution if it could happen. Turkey President Erdogan, he actually met Putin also, even though the details are not out there, but definitely there is something they must have discussed, and I'm pretty sure that Ukraine war was one of them, because they said that President Erdogan said that he's going to visit and meet him regarding the grain export from Ukraine, because Black Sea actually is being blocked by Russia, that any ship taking any grain from Ukraine to the other ports will be attacked, and that ship is on its own mercy, which means that already the population in the world, which is facing a really high price on inflation on the food side, they will see more of it. India has already stopped exporting rice to the world, and it's yeah. So if you really start looking at cutting this whole thing into the pieces, what you're looking at is that there is a move towards protectionism also at the same time. Why? Because what we have is, like India first, it stopped exporting wheat, now rice. China is not sending out some material for the chips because of the trade war between US and China. US is starting its own manufacturing for some of the chips, where Europeans are not happy because they are saying that US gave tax breaks to have domestically produced some of the chips by giving a break to their own companies, which basically against the trade deal which they had. So in a nutshell, again, what is happening is slowly but surely everybody is retreating from the world trade one way or the other. And then we have the former president Donald Trump, who is running to be the president again, saying that if he becomes the president, he will put up a 10% tariff on everything which comes to the United States, which means you and I will be paying for everything, and I mean literally everything, from food to the clothes, which is already expensive. And ultimately, what would happen if you have a Republican majority? They will give more break to billionaires, which they already did. And again, let us not forget which Nikki Haley, was the first one and only Republican who really said on the debate that President Trump was the one who contributed the maximum amount to the deficit of the United States. Everybody was, dancing around the deficit, and they were blaming Democrats for everything. She was the one who actually put the nail right where it should have been. Yes, everybody contributed. I'm not saying that Democrats did not, but the question is who contributed more, and how many times the debt limit, which we discussed in one of my previous shows, that the debt limit was raised by how many times during a Republican president and a Democrat president. We need to look at that. It is about time to go, and before I go, again, this is something which I'm going to say as my final word today. If India really wants to be a power player in the world, then they have to come out of their nest and talk about how to be there, instead of changing the names of the city and the country and the raising down the history of the Muslims who ruled in India for more than 700-800 years, and then trying to recreate history which may not be even the history. So we got to learn how to live and learn from the past and move on to have a better future, not for us, but for the coming generation, and how India can best be the player in the world, in the emerging world, which is happening right now, where South Hemisphere countries are going to play a major role as we move along. Having said that, with that note, till next time, good night and good luck.